Less free, more paid. I'm going to share with you 3 ways to increase your speaker fees on this episode of the Speaking Your Brand podcast. More and more women are making an impact by starting businesses, running for office, and speaking up for what matters. With my background as a TV political analyst, entrepreneur, and speaker, I interview and coach purpose-driven women to shape their brands, grow their companies, and become recognized as influencers in their field. This is Speaking Your Brand, your place to learn how to persuasively communicate your message to your audience. Hi there, and welcome to the Speaking Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Carol Cox. If you've been getting speaking requests, but they're free or low paid, or you've been charging the same amount for a while and you aren't sure if and how to raise your speaker fees, this episode is for you. I'm going to share with you 3 reasons you should increase your speaking fee and how to confidently do so. I'm also going to go through specific dollar amounts of what you could be charging based on where you're at in your speaking journey. And finally, I am going to talk about reasons why you may decide to speak for free and specific things you can do to make sure you're getting maximum value from those speaking engagements. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. At Speaking Your Brand, we help women entrepreneurs and professionals clarify their brand message and story, create their signature talks, and develop their thought leadership platforms. Our mission is to get more women in positions of influence and power because we believe that it's through women's stories, voices, and visibility that we challenge the status quo and change existing systems to benefit more people. And we certainly need that now more than ever. I've been speaking my entire professional career, really the past 20 years, since I started my first 2 businesses, which were in the technology space, to my time in local politics, to what I've been doing with Speaking Your Brand. And I've spoken both for free and for pay. And there are definitely reasons to do both. And so that's why I really want to share with you in this episode how you can think about your speaker fees, how to increase them, and when you should say yes to doing free speaking engagements, but making sure that they're worthwhile for you. So many times when we work with our clients and we suggest to them higher fees that they could be quoting, they're afraid that the person on the other end will say no, so that they'll lose out on that potential speaking engagement by quoting a fee that maybe they perceive as too high. Sometimes they lack confidence in quoting a higher fee. Sometimes they just don't know what is standard fees. And also, I think some of the times is that they're not sure if their content or their delivery is worthy of a higher fee. And I really want to dig into that with you today. The first thing to do is make sure that you're positioning yourself as a premium paid speaker. Your brand reflects how others see you. If your LinkedIn profile isn't optimized, if your website doesn't look professional, if you don't have a speaker page on your website, if you don't have your speaker fees or even a starting price for your speaker fees on your speaking page on your website, then so many event organizers are going to assume that you speak for free because your brand is reflecting that. To have a high value brand as a speaker, you really need consistent thought leadership content and a track record of successful speaking. This is why when women go through our Thought Leader Academy, one of the things that they work on is their container for their thought leadership. A container could be a podcast. If you already have a podcast, you could do a solo series on your existing podcast as part of your thought leadership. You can do a LinkedIn live show. You could do an event, an initiative, a video series on YouTube or LinkedIn, some type of container where you're consistently putting out your ideas so that other people, like event organizers, can find you and can see this consistency. The track record of successful speaking is to show that you are on the speaking circuit. Think about it from an event organizer's point of view. If they are bringing you in as a speaker, they want to make sure that you're going to deliver, that you're going to do a great job for their event and for their audience. So they need to see that you have done this before. If you're newer to speaking, keep listening because I'm going to talk when we get towards the end of this episode about how to do free speaking engagements so that you can build that track record of successful speaking. One of the things that I encourage you to do is take our speaker archetype quiz. It's entirely free to take. It only takes a few minutes. because that's going to let you know what type of speaker you are. So where are your natural strengths as a speaker so that you can leverage those in your brand as a speaker. And then, of course, add other elements to your speaking from the other types of archetypes so that you can become a well-rounded speaker. You can take our speaker archetype quiz at speakingyourbrand.com/quiz. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/quiz. It's free and just takes a few minutes to get your results. So here's the thing about positioning yourself as a premium paid speaker. If you set your fee too low, that can actually backfire on you. You can be hurting your brand because imagine that an event organizer who has their annual event coming up and it's a big event for them. They're going to have VIPs there. Maybe it's their executive leadership team, certain people in the audience, and they want to make sure that their speakers are really providing the quality that they want. So imagine that they're interviewing several speakers. One speaker charges $2,500, another speaker charges $4,500, and you come in and say, I'll do it for free. Or maybe you quote $500. Which speaker is the event organizer going to select? Most likely, they're going to select the one that quoted the $2,500 or the $4,500, not the person who quoted nothing or $500 because of that perceived quality. Imagine that you're the event organizer and you're thinking, well, if this person's going to do it for free or for only $500, are they actually going to put the time and effort into it to make sure that they're prepared and that their presentation is as good as it could be? That's why position yourself as a premium paid speaker and making sure that your brand reflects that can serve you more. Your quoting higher fees can actually serve you better than quoting too low. This is why we recommend on the speaking page on your website that you put your speaker fees. You can just say starting at whatever the fee is. So that way event organizers know, number one, that there is going to be some type of fee so that they don't go in with the assumption that you're going to speak for free. But number two, that they understand that the quality is there. So strategy number one is making sure that your brand reflects that you are a premium paid speaker. Strategy number two to increase your speaker fees is to ask other speakers what they charge. When the women go through our Thought Leader Academy, we have very honest and open conversations about what we at Speaking Your Brand charge for our speaking fees. We encourage the women to share what they're charging so that we can get a better sense of what the going rates are. And I'm going to share with you also in this episode in just a little bit what kind of some standard speaker fees are. I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast episode a few months ago. It was on, I don't remember if it was on the Dare to Lead or Unlocking Us podcast that she has. And she was having a conversation with her guest. And she said that this was probably several years ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago now, that where she was speaking at an event and she was the most prominent keynote speaker there. I think she was doing the opening keynote. So the premium slot. And there were other keynote speakers there, luncheon keynotes, closing keynotes, and so on. And she said that when she was backstage, I don't know if it was before or after her talk, but she was backstage and there was a speaker agent there backstage who was representing some of the other speakers at the event. And he says to Brene Brown, you know that the speakers I'm representing are getting paid double what you're getting paid today. And she was floored. She had no idea because no one had ever shared with her what those speakers, they were probably men, were getting paid. So Brene Brown said that she went back to her speaker agent or whoever books her speaking engagements and said, double my fee starting now. And at that time, Brene Brown was probably getting paid pretty well. Maybe she was getting paid $25,000 for a speech, maybe $35,000, $40,000 for a speech. She didn't say, but she had no idea that she could be charging so much more and she should be charging so much more to get to that pay equity. That, there's that gender pay gap that exists in the workforce. The same thing happens with speakers as well. And so I would encourage you to talk to other speakers that especially men speakers, and ask what they're charging. They don't have to give you specifics of which speaking engagement they got that fee for, which speaking engagements, a different event organizer or company paid them for, but just in general, have them share with you, what are their speaking fee ranges? Are they starting at $2,500? Are they starting at $7,500? When for this particular type of event, what are they charging for? And then I would encourage you to share your speaking fees with speakers you know who are just coming up, who are just getting started. If you've been speaking for a while and you're more advanced and you've been charging for a while, share your fees with those other speakers so that they have an idea of what to charge. So that was strategy number 2, ask other speakers what they charge. Strategy number 3 to increase your speaker fee is to understand the role you play and the value you provide as a speaker. As a speaker, you are a leader. You're there to inspire, motivate, to inform, to entertain, you can call it edutain, to give the audience an experience that fits in with that event. This is why I encourage so many of you, as you've been listening to the podcast, to shift your identity from being an expert presenter or a commodity speaker to a thought leader and a speaker who provides an experience to the audience. Your content and delivery, your focus should be around providing transformation rather than solely information. And when you start to make this shift from expert presenter to thought leader to providing transformation rather than information, then you're going to be able to separate your speaker fee from the time that you're spending preparing for and delivering your presentation. What I see happen a lot is with our clients is that they'll get a request for a speaking engagement, whether it's a lunch and learn or a workshop or even a keynote, and they'll think to themselves, well, it's going to take me about 5 hours to prepare the presentation, and then it's an hour presentation, and then maybe like an hour or so for travel. So maybe that will take me 8 to 10 hours total. And then they think about what their hourly rate is, and then they charge that for their speaker fee. The problem with that is that as a speaker, that time, even the time it takes you to prepare the presentation and the slides and to practice and then to actually show up and deliver the presentation, there is so much more that went into you being able to stand in front of that audience, whether virtually or in person, and deliver that content in a transformational way. It took all of the years that you've been working in your industry, all of the time that you spent working with your clients to develop your framework, to develop your process, all of the time it has taken you to get better as a speaker. So your speaker fee should not be tied to the amount of hours it takes for you to do this. And I always use this example of why you need to decouple your fee from your time. On the sitcom Friends, towards the end of the series, so this was probably late 90s, early 2000s, remember there were 6 of them that were the main actors in Friends. And for the last few years, do you know how much each of them was paid per episode of Friends? $1 million. For a 22-minute episode where they weren't even on for the entire 22 minutes, each of them got paid $1 million per episode. Maybe they were on for 8 minutes of the episode, 10 minutes of the episode, and they got paid $1 million. Now imagine if their mindset had been, I'm only going to charge based on my time, the time that I spend in rehearsal and preparing for my lines and the actual time that I spend delivering the lines that gets recorded. No, they charge based on the value they were providing to NBC. Now, obviously, they had a lot of value because of the advertising dollars, because Friends was a top-rated show. But as a speaker, it's the same thing. You're going to be a top-rated speaker because of the content and the delivery that you provide to that audience. If you want to learn more about how to create a transformational talk, go back to last week's episode where I walk you through our signature talk canvas framework so that you can start using that as a guide for laying out the flow of your content. And if you want to hear more about this idea of shifting from an expert presenter to a thought leader, check out episode 241 from last year on the expert trap and episode 271 from earlier this year on providing transformation versus information in your talks. And those episode links are in the show notes. So that is the third way to increase your speaker fees, is to understand the role you play and the value you provide as a speaker, and to decouple your fee from the time that you're spending. So now you may be wondering what to charge. And really, it could be anywhere from $500, $1,500, $2,500, $5,000, $7,500, $10,000, $15,000, and so on. Just like in your business, start somewhere and keep increasing it. Whatever you do in your business today, the programs you run, the services that you provide, most likely you're charging more today than you were charging 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whenever you had started your business. The same thing with your speaking fee. Keep increasing it. If you're brand new and you've only done free, charge a $500 or $1,000 for an event that you normally would have only done for free. If you're getting a request for some type of workshop or training, charge $2,500 instead of charging $500 or $1,000. If you're getting requests for a keynote and perhaps in the past you've quoted $1,500, try quoting $3,500. This is why I want you to talk to other speakers, especially other speakers who are in your industry or say in your local community, to get a sense of what they're charging. And make sure to talk to both women and men when you're getting this idea of what they're charging for their speaking. Our clients have charged $3,500 for a virtual keynote. So during the pandemic, $3,500 for a Zoom keynote, $10,000 for an in-person keynote, $15,000 for a virtual corporate training. So it is possible for you to get paid well for your speaking. Now, there are good reasons to speak for free, especially if you're just starting out or if you're coming out of the pandemic like so many of us are and you kind of need to get yourself back on the speaking circuit. So speaking for free is great for brand awareness. More people will know what you do in your business, that you are a speaker on the particular topic that you speak about. The other great reason to speak for free is building relationships. Back in 2010, so over 12 years ago now, I spoke at an internet conference. This is when I had the technology business, and I met there 2 women who were also speaking. So we were at the speakers table together. So we got to know each other that day at the conference. And now we have been friends since then. I just saw them a few weeks ago when I was on vacation. But because of that one conference that I spoke at in 2010, and meeting those 2 other women who also ran events, I was invited to probably speak at least a dozen other events in the 2 years after that by them because of those relationships that I built, because I was there speaking. And here's the thing, you will get more speaking invitations the more speaking you do. That's just the way it happens, because event organizers go to events, they go to conferences, and they see speakers there, and then they'll invite you to speak. So brand awareness, building relationships, lead generation is another reason to speak for free. And actually, I have an episode coming up next week as an on-air coaching call with one of our Thought Leader Academy clients. And we talk about how she can use the presentations that she's doing to get more leads for her business. So make sure to listen to that episode next week to learn more about how to do lead generation in your presentations. Other reasons to speak for free is because it's a nice venue for videography. So maybe you want to get some new speaking clips for your speaking page, for your speaker reel, and you need some new videography. And that particular event has a really nice venue, really nice stage. And so it may make sense to speak for free or to speak for a low fee in exchange for getting videography. You can also speak for free to test out new material to build your confidence. And this can be the case even if you've been speaking for a while, even if you've been speaking for good money for a while. You may be working on a new keynote and you just need to test it out. So go to a small local group, relationships that you have in your local community, speak to those audiences to test out that material. Ultimately, what I want you to keep in mind about speaking for free is that it's your decision. So make sure you're making an intentional decision about accepting free speaking engagements. For example, you could have a set number of free speaking engagements that you do each year. Maybe you'll do 1 a quarter, maybe you'll do 2 per year. And then once you've hit that number, then you can reply back to that event organizer and say, thank you so much. I set aside to do a certain number of free speaking engagements each year. I've already reached that amount. Would you like to have a conversation about what it would look like for me to come speak at your organization for my fee? And then you just leave it to them. So let me do a quick recap here. As far as how to increase your speaker fees, number 1, position yourself as a premium paid speaker. Number 2, ask other speakers what they charge. Number 3, understand the role you play and the value you provide as a speaker. If you would like to work with us to create your signature talk and your thought leadership platform so you can get those higher speaker fees, I encourage you to apply for our Thought Leader Academy program. Our next enrollment start date is coming up soon, August 30th, 2022. So you want to get your application in today. After you submit your application, we then schedule a 30-minute Zoom call so we can talk about your goals and then you answer your questions about the Academy. You can get all the details and submit your application at speakingyourbrand.com/academy. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/academy. Until next time, thanks for listening.